Hello, Jackets fans. Welcome to Boom and Gloom, a Columbus Blue Jackets fan podcast where I discuss the boom, which is the good, and the gloom, which is the bad, of CBJ hockey. I'm your host, Anthony, also known as Whaler Jacket in the social media world, and I am North America's longest suffering hockey fan. Yep, if you missed my last episode, I changed it. I changed it from being just Ohio's longest suffering hockey fan to North America's longest suffering hockey fan. Until I receive severe blowback or information suggesting otherwise, I contend that no other hockey fan in North America has suffered as long and as much as I have. Being a Hartford Whaler fan and now a Blue Jackets fan, that's some pretty intense suffering right there. Thanks for joining me today. If you are new here, welcome. I hope you enjoy my perspective on the Columbus Blue Jackets, and if you are a returning listener, thank you. I truly appreciate your support. I am recording this on the heels of a 5-3 Blue Jackets victory over the New Jersey Devils. That is, of course, a positive, but before I talk about that specific game, I want to talk about the previous several games, prior to that 5-3 victory. The Blue Jackets, as you probably know, have been synonymous with frustration for most of their existence. I mean, let's be honest here, right? But after a season, last season, where they just missed the playoffs by one win, and with the hopes for improvement this season, on top of all the previous frustration we have experienced as fans of this franchise, the last several games prior to the win in New Jersey have been peak level frustration. And I'm well aware of what they say. It's just a game. It's just a sport. It has no real bearing on my life. Well, as my fellow super passionate hockey fans will attest, it just doesn't work that way for some of us. I try to watch every single Blue Jackets game. I live about 25 minutes north of Dayton, so it isn't really convenient for me, nor is it financially responsible for me to attend lots of games in person. So I try to sit in my basement man cave and watch the games on TV. Well, I was at the point where I honestly thought I needed to take a Blue Jackets break for my mental health. I strongly considered it. And there have been a couple of games that I haven't been able to watch recently, which kind of worked out because I didn't have to suffer. But for a team to be so frustrating that it makes fans like me not want to watch them, that's saying a lot right there. And November was a very frustrating month for us Jackets fans. So let me break that down a little bit for you. I got some stats in front of me. Okay. They played 15 games in November. They won 5 of them. Only 5. They won, another way to put this, they only won a third of their games in the month of November. That's not a good sign for a team expecting to make the playoffs. And of those 5, only 2 were in regulation. So in the entire month of November, they only won twice. in regulation. 2 regulation wins in the entire month. The other 3 were overtime and or shootout wins. And all 5 of the wins were only by 1 goal. That means until last night in New Jersey, they hadn't won a game by 2 goals or more since late October. That was against the Maple Leafs. That's just horrible. And 4 times, they've not only blown a third period lead, but they have blown a 2-goal third period lead. This team cannot figure out how to put away opponents in the third period. Now, they did last night, and I hope that is a shift that we, as fans and the team, were hoping for. But I'm not convinced. The Devils were down 4 defensemen in the third period, so that helped out the Jackets a lot. But more on that game later, okay? What I want to talk about today is something I discussed last episode, but I thought warranted more discussion. When Dean Evason was hired as the Jackets head coach, I don't think there was anyone more excited than I was. If you didn't hear me say this in an earlier episode, I was Dean Evason's biggest fan when he was a player for the Hartford Whalers. I loved him. Okay, and he was not a big name, so I doubt he had a bigger fan than me. I was a lot like him as a player. Undersized, but scrappy. He played with a lot of heart. He didn't score a lot of goals, didn't get a whole lot of points, but he always gave 100%. And occasionally got his butt kicked along the boards and in the corners. Just like me. He wore number 12 with the Whalers. So guess what number I chose when I played high school hockey? 12. And I continued wearing that number through my college intramural hockey years and into my adult beer league years, which is now. I still wear it today. I wear number 12 all because of Mr. Evason. So yeah, I don't think there was anyone more excited than me. My all-time favorite hockey player had just become the coach of my favorite NHL team. But it has become clear to me that just because I loved him as a player doesn't mean I have to love him as a coach. Many of his decisions this season so far have been questionable, we'll say. And what exacerbates this is his lineup decisions in overtime. And again, let's be honest here. The Jackets have gone to overtime a lot. 8 of Jet Greaves' last 9 starts have gone to overtime. 8 of the last 11 games prior to last night's game against the Devils went to overtime. Now, the fact that they can't close out teams and have to go to overtime to begin with, that's a big problem in itself. But I'm not even addressing that right now. What I want to address is Dean Evason's continued bad lineup decisions in overtime. I had been frustrated and disappointed. And sorry, I don't know if you heard that. My phone is vibrating. We have a beer league hockey game tonight, and I think that's some players saying they're not going to be there. But I'll check that soon. Anyway, I had been frustrated and disappointed already, but what really brought things to a head was the game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Again, the Jackets blew a 2-goal third period lead in that game. on home ice. The game should never have even gone to overtime. But it did. Okay, so now Dean Evason should be making the best possible decisions to get that goal in OT and earn those 2 points. Instead, he makes an absolutely boneheaded decision, in my opinion, of course. He started Werenski. Great move. Totally agree with him doing that. But then he also started Luca Pinelli and Sean Monahan. Now, as we all know, Sean Monahan has been playing through something. At least we assume he's been playing through something. In fact, at this point, recording this on Tuesday, we're not even sure if he's going to be able to play in the next game on Thursday against Detroit. He has not been himself all season. But I could understand throwing him out there in order to have the best possible chance at winning the faceoff. So sure, got it. I can live with that. No problem. Now, I think he should have started out with Adam Fantilli, but fine. Whatever. Start with Monahan. But what is absolutely unacceptable in my mind is starting Luca Pinelli. Yes, agreed. He had been playing pretty well. But the dude was playing in his second NHL game ever. He had zero experience playing overtime in the NHL. And plus, Dean threw him out there to start overtime against 2 first ballot Hall of Famers. One of whom was Sidney freaking Crosby, who has been a jacket killer his entire career. Luca Pinelli matched up against Sidney Crosby. That doesn't bode well. This was just an absolutely urine poor decision by Dean Evason. And I'm saying that because I forget which episode this is for me. 45, I think. And I've never used inappropriate language, and that will continue. This is a family-friendly podcast. But this was a poor decision by Dean Evason, and then after the game, he mentioned that he had Sillinger and Coyle ready to go out next. You could make an argument for Coyle. He has had a hand in more of the offense for the Jackets than expected this season. And he's probably our smartest, most experienced player. So fine. But Sillinger is a decent player. Sorry, my dogs are barking. But Sillinger, he is a third liner who lacks the speed and offensive talent to give you an advantage in overtime. All while you have Fantilli, Johnson, and Chinnikov sitting on the bench. Fantilli should always be for overtime an absolute no-brainer. Why are you waiting to put him out for the third overtime shift? That is just beyond my understanding. And it's beyond stupid, if I'm being completely honest. As for Johnson and Chinnikov, yeah, they are both severely underachieving this season. But their games are better suited for overtime than the 2 games of experience that Luca Pinelli has. It might be just, what Johnson needs to snap out of his slump. It might just be what Chinnikov needs. What he needs to get going and show what he can do with his speed and all that extra space. Just absolutely horrible decision making. Oh, and I just said that Fantilli would have been out third. That's just a guess. The way Dean makes decisions for overtime, he could have put out Lundestrom and Wood third, for all I know. Putting out Lundestrom at all, with his whopping 0 goals and 2 or 3 assists, that's a joke. He is a fourth liner. He should not be out there for overtime. And you could argue, but he and Wood succeeded in overtime in Buffalo. Yeah, they did. He did. But that doesn't warrant continuing to put him out in overtime instead of more offensive weapons that you have stapled to your bench. It makes no sense. I've not seen a single Jacket fan on social media happy with putting Lundestrom on the ice during overtime. Bob McElligott even questioned it when I was listening to his Monday mailbag. And he and I disagree on plenty, but not this. I'm not sure what goes into Dean Evason's thinking in overtime, but I think it flat out sucks and needs to change. All I know is that my faith in him is fading. I mean, do you ever watch him closely on the bench? Like when the camera pans to him? It's like he is constantly ticked off. Constantly dropping F-bombs. It's easy to read his lips for that word. He has this fiery intensity. Yet we rarely see the Jackets inspired by it. We rarely see the Jackets play with an abundance of fire and intensity. There are actually plenty of fans out there calling for him to be fired. I'm not there yet. But I do think that he needs to make some changes in order to get the most out of his players. And when he was hired, that's what we were told was his forte. Squeezing the best out of his team. Making mountains out of molehills when it came to player effort and performance. I just haven't seen that this season. And we're almost a third of the way through it. It hasn't clicked yet. But it has got to start clicking soon. Otherwise, this season is not going to be a playoff season. Okay, I said I would talk about the Devils game earlier, so here we go. I play in a pickleball league on Monday nights. So, admittedly, I didn't get to start watching the game until about midway through the second period. What I saw when I began watching from the Jackets was a team playing with intensity and a little bit of a chip on its shoulders. For all intents and purposes, this was a must-win game for the Jackets. They were sitting in last place in the Metro Division and towards the bottom of the conference. A conference that may be the tightest I have ever seen. So few points separate all the teams. It's crazy. And after losing 4 in a row, 3 of those in which they blew a third period lead, it almost felt like this game was going to be a defining moment in the season. If they lost, that would be 5 in a row, and maybe it would finally be time to say that this team was not going to go anywhere this season. But if they won, if they could march into the home arena of the Metro Division's first place team, a place where the Devils had only lost once, I think, all season. And a place where the Jackets have had very little success. And without their, arguably their top player in Kirill Marchenko, and without arguably your best energy guy in Matthew Olivier, if they could march in there and still pull out a win, then maybe, just maybe, it could be used as a catalyst to turn things around. And the Jackets did just that. But it was, of course, not without a little drama. The Jackets got to a 4-2 lead in the third period. And I don't think there was a Jackets fan alive who didn't start dreading the usual 2-goal lead collapse. And when the Devils scored their third goal to make it 4-3, I know everyone was thinking it. But then the Jackets did something amazing. They actually kept their foot on the gas. Elvis Merzlikins played great, and they actually scored the next goal to make it 5-3. A goal that was the result of great pressure put on the Devils in their defensive zone. I was very happy with the victory. I felt like we fans needed it, but I also felt like the team really needed it. They needed that one. The question is now, is this a turning point? Does this win by 2 goals in regulation, by the way, does it give the team the confidence they need moving forward? Or was this an anomaly? The next game against the Detroit Red Wings is going to be a measuring stick for that, I think. If they come out with intensity and play that way for a full 60 minutes, win the game, then maybe I'll jump on the bandwagon that this team has turned a corner. But if not, then I'm just going to stick with my usual pessimistic ways. As I said earlier, the Devils were down to 4 defensemen in the third. Maybe that just wasn't sustainable for that team. You know, they broke down and the Jackets took advantage. Maybe if they had a full set of 6 healthy defensemen, we'd be having a completely different discussion right now. But this is positive, right? Okay, I gotta stay positive. This was positive. It was a huge boost, I think, for the team. All right, now with Monahan going down and possibly not playing the next game, I really hope Boone Jenner is able to come back. And I'm not the biggest Boone Jenner fan in the world, but his return would definitely help to offset the loss of Monahan, especially in the faceoff circle. And if we can get Marchenko and Olivier back soon, then maybe the Jackets will start to get some better footing. The funny thing is, all this talk about how bad the Jackets have been, and I admit it, I am a huge part of the pessimistic side of the fan base. As bad as they have been, or we pessimists feel they have been, they are only 2 points out of a wild card spot, and only 3 points out of third place in the Metro Division. They're only 5 points behind the division leader, Carolina. That's not bad at all. But it shows you just how tight this division is. There is not a lot of room for error. And the Jackets have been making plenty of errors lately with all their overtimes, practically giving points away. And in fact, I heard, and I have not looked this up to verify this, that the win against the Devils last night was the first time all season that they didn't give at least 1 point to another Metro Division team. This is the first time they got both points. So yeah. And had the Jackets been in the Atlantic Division Well, they would currently be tied for third place with Montreal in the Atlantic Division. It just goes to show you how tight the whole conference is. And what the heck happened anyway? Boston was supposed to be taking a step back this year. Pittsburgh was supposed to be taking a huge step back. Philadelphia wasn't supposed to be a factor. The Islanders, hardly a factor. Washington was supposed to take a step back last season, or 2 seasons ago. These years, these seasons are supposed to be the years when Pittsburgh and Washington's window for success is closing. Yet, here we are, and they are still right in the thick of things. Makes me wonder, maybe the Jackets are actually better than we think they are. And what it is, it's just the quality of the teams around them that make them seem to be less impressive. Like if you could somehow take this year's CBJ team and this roster and send them back in time and swap them out with the team 5 seasons ago, would that team do better 5 years ago? Is it just the never-ending bad luck the Jackets seem to have that now we actually have a playoff caliber team? The problem is just that every other team in the conference is also a playoff caliber team. It's because of, parity. Who knows? But just something that I can't help but think about. With last night's goaltender performance, who starts between the pipes against the Red Wings? Maybe they announced it and I didn't see it, but assuming they didn't, I bet they reward Elvis and send him out there on Thursday. Just when I was starting to think Jet Greaves is the Blue Jackets' number 1 goaltender. This is just how things go when you're a fan of the Blue Jackets, I guess. And one more player I want to talk about. Kent Johnson. I discussed him a little bit last episode as well, and I kind of want to backtrack a little bit on a comment I made about him. I said that I didn't feel like he was, I didn't think he fit what the team was trying to do, and as a team, and that Don Waddell should consider trading him if the right deal came along. And it just got me thinking, am I justified in suggesting that? There are 2 schools of thought I can see here. Number 1, Kent Johnson does not fit the Blue Jackets' identity. They want to go bigger, stronger, more physical. And that is certainly not Kent Johnson's game. KJ is a creative playmaker who, even after putting on some weight, is still undersized and gets knocked off pucks way too easily. A trade, giving him a change of scenery, maybe to a team that is more conducive to his skill set. Maybe that's just what the doctor ordered. Or, school of thought number 2, maybe we're just witnessing a really, really, really bad slump. KJ scored 25 goals last year. And that was after missing a bunch of games with an injury. He still had 25 goals. He has shown he is capable of putting up big points. And I remember James Van Riemsdyk last season, with all his years of experience, singled out Kent Johnson and mentioned that he couldn't believe KJ was not a superstar yet. Something like that. I remember him saying one day that he thought one day KJ was going to put up like 80 or 90 points, something like that, 100 points even. I can't remember the number. But Kent Johnson has skills. And it's not like he forgot how to play hockey. Maybe this is just a horrible, ridiculous slump that the Jackets, they're just being patient with. Understanding that sooner or later he is going to bust out of it in a good way. But I also should say that KJ spent a lot of time on JVR's line last season. So with him gone, maybe that's another reason why his game has suffered. Now, in my opinion, the Jackets should have held on to JVR, but that is another topic for another day. All I know is that you don't expect a 5th overall draft pick to be doing this poorly in his 5th season, 4th full season in the NHL. I mean, he has got to be the most creatively gifted playmaker on the team. Yet he has, 3 assists so far this year? 2? I can't remember. 2 or 3. If you told me that he would have this little amount of points 29 games into a season at the start of this season, I would have said you were nuts. He's a talented player, one of the Jackets' best players last season. So maybe, though, I was being a bit hasty with my suggestion that KJ might be beneficial to trade him. Maybe the Jackets just need to ride out his slump, and KJ will come back better than ever after he finds his game again. All right, my last topic for today. I want to address what I saw against the Penguins and every home game against the Penguins since the Jackets came into the league. That is a ton of Penguins fans in the arena. You could even call it an invasion of Penguins fans at Nationwide Arena. It is a topic I've addressed before that I felt I should address again. Here's the deal. It is going to take a generation before that changes. So if you don't like seeing all those Penguins jerseys in the stands, it's going to take a generation. It's going to take a generation with sustained success. Me, growing up in Connecticut, everyone in my family was a diehard New York Rangers fan. But my dad had season tickets to the Hartford Whalers through the company he worked for. We would go to games occasionally, and that's the team I became most familiar with. You could say I fell in love with the team. The brass bonanza, the colors, the players. I mean, I already told you about Dean Evason. I loved that team. I bucked the family trend of being a Ranger fan. I became a Hartford Whaler fan. And again, I spoke about this in one of my previous episodes, and so you may have heard this story before, but I remember doing a report in 6th grade on Kevin Dineen, because we had to do a report on a celebrity, and I picked Kevin Dineen. No other kid did a report on a hockey player, let alone the hometown team that never won anything. I was a Whaler fan through and through. If I had stayed in Connecticut when I graduated from college, and so did the Whalers, and I got married and had kids out there in the Nutmeg State, they would have grown up as Whalers fans. They'd constantly be exposed to my home full of Whalers merchandise. We'd go to games, and they would probably fall in love with them like I did as the hometown team. They were the hometown team. My family started liking the New York Rangers when the Whalers didn't even exist yet. Well, my sons are now 20 and 22 years old, and they are Jackets fans because they have been exposed to a CBJ-centric environment their whole lives. They've watched pretty much only Jackets games on TV since they were young kids. They are a generation of Jackets fans with no allegiance to other teams. That is what is going on now in Columbus. Sure, there are plenty of fans from Pittsburgh who come to Columbus for games. But I suspect there are also plenty of Ohio-based Penguins fans who have been fans since before the Jackets were even born. They were living in Columbus before the Jackets existed, cheering for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But their kids, they're the ones growing up in Ohio and being exposed to the Jackets as their hometown team. They're the ones getting Jackets merchandise like jerseys and signs and t-shirts and hats. When they get older and have kids, they will also be Jackets fans. And eventually, the Ohio-based Penguins fans of today will pass on, and a generation of homegrown Blue Jackets fans will take their place. But there is one caveat to all this. The Jackets have to start consistently winning. All these kids whose parents are Penguins fans, they need a good reason to switch their allegiance from the team that their parents love. Not all kids, I'll say most kids will not be like me, who somehow took to the lovable losers known as the Hartford Whalers, mostly just because they were my local NHL team. Kids want to like a winning team. I'm a fourth grade teacher. Before the Kansas City Chiefs won their first Super Bowl, do you know how many Chiefs jerseys and t-shirts I saw in school? None. None at all. Now, even here in Ohio, I see Mahomes jerseys all the time. I remember when the Golden State Warriors basketball team were nobodies. Never saw a single Warriors shirt or jersey at my school. But when they got consistently good, sustained success, and had a superstar player like Stephen Curry, and I think you say his name, Stephen Curry, maybe it's Stephen Curry, I don't know, I'm not a basketball fan. Well, when that happened, oh boy, were there suddenly a lot of Warrior fans at my school. Kids sporting Curry jerseys everywhere. Kids are kids. They want to cheer for winners. So my prediction for this generational shift I just mentioned, it will really only happen if the Jackets start winning. Because fewer kids will stick with a team that never wins, ever. Instead, they would probably just stay Penguins fans like their parents, because that team, unlike the Jackets, has given their fans a lot to cheer for. Hopefully, someday that will change. And I predict it will. If this team can finally find a way to experience some long-term success. When that happens, look out. The city of Columbus is so used to cheering for a consistent winning team in the Ohio State Buckeyes. If they had another team that experienced such success, look out. You are going to see floodgates open. Floodgates of new fans just I should say floods of new fans, new Blue Jackets fans who are eager to support a winning team. And then, like I said, that's when we will start seeing this generational shift where you have your homegrown Blue Jackets fans kind of phasing out the Penguins fans of the past. That is all I got for today. It's a good thing because my voice is starting to go. I was going to rant about the Jackets needing new uniforms, but again, I will hold off on that until another episode. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking with me. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you come back and listen again. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on social media using the handle Whaler Jacket. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I talked about today. The generational shift for fandom, Dean Evason's coaching ability. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, or any Blue Jackets topic. Any thoughts, questions, suggestions, send them my way. You can also send me an email at whalerjacket@gmail.com. Until next time, take care. I hope you're staying safe out there and enjoying the start of this holiday season. Bye for now, and go Jackets.